Picture this. It's 2 a.m., deep in the wilderness. The forest is dead quiet, bathed in this piercing, cold blue light. You're shivering under a canopy of wet leaves inside a shelter you just spent hours building. The wind is howling out there, violently shaking the branches above you, but the wind isn't actually your biggest problem. You are wide awake, you're miserable, and you're dangerously cold. Welcome to Bushcrafterius. In this explainer, we're unpacking the 3-hour mistake that ruins a bushcraft camp. Because out here, the stakes are incredibly high. And as we'll see, the most fatal error of your night actually happened hours before the sun even went down.
So why exactly are you freezing in what looks like a perfect shelter? I mean, you might look up and see a beautifully woven roof. Thick branches, moss, all that forest debris. It's successfully keeping the rain off. It looks like an absolute masterpiece, right? Pulled straight out of a survival magazine. But here's the harsh truth. That beautiful, watertight roof means absolutely nothing if you've neglected the single most important aspect of a survival camp. You see, we have this deep, almost instinctual tendency to look up when we think of shelter. We focus all our energy on defeating the rain and the wind. But the real danger, the silent threat that is quietly draining the life out of you, is right underneath your boots. 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, you might assume that freezing in the woods only happens during some howling blizzard or in the bitter sub-zero depths of winter, right? Actually, scratch that. Picture a brisk, damp autumn afternoon. The sun dips behind the ridge, the cold dampness settles deep into your clothes, and suddenly, 50 degrees is more than enough to trigger a dangerous, rapid drop in your core temperature. According to wilderness safety data from the National Park Service, hypothermia regularly catches people completely off guard in these surprisingly mild conditions. If the environment is wet and cold and you aren't thoroughly prepared, your body is in genuine peril. It's that simple. Section 1. The heat thief. Okay, to understand exactly why that violent shivering started in the first place, we have to look closely at conduction. Hypothermia is essentially a depressed body temperature caused by prolonged exposure to cold, rain, and wind. The early warning signs hit you incredibly fast: uncontrollable shivering, sudden clumsiness, lethargy, and deeply flawed judgment. But how does this happen when you're safely inside a shelter? Well, the cold earth is an infinitely large, relentless heat sink. It is quite literally a heat thief. When you lie directly on the cold ground, or even with just inadequate padding beneath you, the earth continuously absorbs your body heat until you reach the exact same temperature as the dirt. You could be wrapped in the thickest, most expensive sleeping bag on the market, but the moment your body weight crushes its loft against that cold, hard ground, conduction is going to ruthlessly steal your heat all night long.
Section 2. Safe Site Selection.
To fix the fatal error of our freezing night, we need to rewind the timeline a bit. Let's go back 3 hours, back to the late afternoon. The light is fading, you've just dropped your heavy pack, and you're surveying the woods. Listen, this is where the real survival happens. When you pick your spot, you need foundational rules for both personal safety and leave no trace ethics. First up, keep your camp, your toilet, and your dishwashing areas at least 200 feet from any water source. This protects fragile aquatic ecosystems, but importantly for you, it keeps you away from the heavy, damp, cold air that naturally settles down in river valleys at night. Next, clear away flammable materials and aim for mineral soil. You know, that sandy, light-colored, organic-free dirt if you plan on having a fire. And finally, always look straight up. You're scanning for hazard trees or heavy, dead branches, what we call widowmakers, that could easily snap and fall in high winds.
Now we get to the vital correction of our massive mistake. Step 1. Choose that flat, dry ground away from the cold valley air. Step 2. Build a thick, aggressive insulation layer to completely separate your body from the earth. And step 3. Construct your shelter roof. Notice the specific order there? Insulating your bed from the cold earth must absolutely take priority over building a complex roof. You need a deep mattress of dry, crunchy leaves, thick pine boughs, or a dedicated modern foam sleeping pad. And honestly, it needs to be piled knee-high. Why? Because once your body weight compresses it down, it still needs to be thick enough to keep you entirely off the dirt. In bushcraft, to construct your floor long before you even think about your ceiling.
Section 3. Filters versus purifiers.
Hydration is an absolute core pillar of survival, mostly because dehydration dramatically speeds up the onset of hypothermia. But here's the thing. Pristine-looking water can be a massive trap. You might emerge from the thick brush, find this crystal-clear, ice-cold mountain stream cascading over rocks, and think, wow, it's perfectly safe to drink straight from the source. But the reality is, pristine-looking water can still make you incredibly sick. The golden rule from outdoor experts is simple and unyielding. If livestock, wildlife, or humans can physically reach an area, so can invisible, dangerous contaminants transmitted via their waste. You simply cannot judge water purity by how clear and refreshing it looks to the naked eye. No way.
To make that water safe, you've got to choose the exact right tool for the environment. And let's get one thing straight. Water filters and water purifiers are not the same thing, and mixing them up can be disastrous. A water filter physically strains out larger biological threats, specifically protozoan cysts like Giardia and bacteria like E. coli. These are your absolute main concerns when trekking in the backcountry of the US and Canada. A water purifier, on the other hand, also combats viruses, which are way too tiny for most standard microfilters to catch. Purifiers typically rely on chemicals like iodine or chlorine dioxide, or even sophisticated ultraviolet light. If you're traveling in less developed regions globally, a purifier is mandatory. But for typical North American bushcraft, a high-quality filter is your primary go-to tool.
But wait, before you even use your main filter, you need to seriously consider a pre-filter to maintain your gear. Whether you're dealing with heavy glacial sediment, gritty, silty water, or just thick mud and leaf debris stirred up by a recent rainstorm, pulling that murky water directly into your main filter element is going to clog its microscopic pores incredibly fast. It's like trying to drink a thick milkshake through a tiny straw. A pre-filter is just a simple barrier that physically removes those natural, larger particles first. It doesn't kill the bugs, but it makes the actual treatment process so much easier. It drastically speeds up your flow rate when you're incredibly thirsty, and it significantly extends the life of your vital, expensive filter element. Section 4. Safe, fire, and leave no trace.
So, we've got our deeply insulated bed, and we have safely sourced filtered water. Now we bring in the warm, comforting orange firelight. But building a fire isn't just about throwing sparks from a ferro rod. It requires deep responsibility. Step 1 is always, without fail, to check local regulations. Severe dry periods mean fires might be totally banned, and you absolutely must respect that. Step 2. Use existing fire rings to significantly lessen your impact on the landscape, or build a mound fire directly on mineral soil. Step 3. Manage your embers constantly and eventually burn them down to a fine white ash. And step 4, literally the most critical step of all, extinguish your fire completely. Pour water, stir the ashes thoroughly, pour more water. The ashes must be physically cold to the touch before you ever walk away.
Fuel selection matters just as much as how you put the fire out. Gather only downed, dead wood far away from your immediate site. Never, ever cut live trees, and don't even break dry branches off standing dead trees. Local wildlife desperately needs those for habitat. Keep your firewood strictly to nothing thicker than an adult's wrist. Why? Because massive logs rarely burn completely to ash. They just end up being left behind as blackened, ugly scraps that totally rue the site for the next person. Small wood burns incredibly hot, turns very quickly into manageable ash, and allows you to leave the wild landscape exactly as you found it. Section 5. The Bushcraft takeaway. Let's bring our timeline back to the present. We've corrected the mistakes. Instead of a freezing, miserable blue night shivering in the dirt, picture the contrast. You're resting comfortably on a deeply insulated bed, you're fully hydrated with safely filtered water, and you're relaxing next to a responsibly managed warm fire. It all comes down to one absolute truth. In bushcraft, your bed is often more important than your roof. I know it goes against our basic human instincts to focus on the ground, but it is the true bedrock of wilderness survival. The ground is a relentless heat thief. Stop the conduction first, build your insulation layer thick, and only then worry about the rain. So, will your next camp be a freezing cold trap or a warm, solid foundation for survival? The difference between misery and comfort isn't about the expensive gear you brought in your pack, it's about the specific decisions you make in those vital first 3 hours of setting up camp. Prioritize your ground insulation heavily, source your water safely and effectively, and always respect the power and responsibility of fire. Make the right choices, and the dark forest becomes a welcoming home instead of a freezing trap. Keep learning, stay safe out there, and we'll see you on the next explainer.